The gentleman there.
Hi, I just want to clarify, you say you accept contemporary scientific beliefs.
I do.
Right. How do you reconcile those with the matter in the Bible? Do you think that's a metaphor? Do you think that all the believe that the things that happen in the Bible were literally happened?
I think what the church thinks about the Bible, which is that it's all true. And that is to say, whatever the original author was trying to tell us is true. So we need to work out then, what is the original author trying to tell us? But what is the original author of Genesis 1 trying to tell us? The main point of Genesis 1 is the moral that there are no gods. That's the main point of Genesis 1. How do I know that? Well, you compare it with the kinds of stories people told about the world at the time. And what they did is that all the things that are creatures in Genesis 1 are gods in the contemporary accounts. All the lights in the skies, the sun and the moon are all gods. So all of Genesis 1 is telling you there are no gods. That's the main message of Genesis 1. Not that things were made in 6 days or, any of the other things that are sort of simple-minded reading of the text.
Do you want to go to the sea in his boat with his menagerie?
I don't know. I doubt it. I doubt it. But I'm not certain that he didn't. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what the right... Yes, you have in my knowledge. In my
He's asking about the resurrection, though.
Yes, there you go. The first chapter of Genesis.
No, it's just about the resurrection.
What do you mean, no?
The New Testament, is that a metaphor as well? Is that literally true? And is that compatible with contemporary scientific belief?
I think Jesus rose bodily from the dead, and I think that is consistent with scientific belief to the extent that any miracle can be. I mean, when we're saying that something is a miracle, you're saying it happens outside of the order of science.
So your contemporary belief in science allows for miracles?
Well, science can't, I don't think, rule out the possibility of miracles. What it can do is say that this is the natural way in which things behave. What it can't, without some considerable philosophical baggage, extra baggage that's not actually determined by the experiments, it can't, without that extra philosophical baggage, rule out that there might be some things that come about not by the natural.
But why do you believe in the resurrection? What evidence do you have?
I said to you that I don't need evidence. What I need are reasons, and they're not necessarily evidential reasons.
You said it must have happened, therefore it did.
No, not at all. What I say is that when we're thinking about, when we're talking about Christianity as a whole,
We're talking about the resurrection.
All right.
People believe in the resurrection.
I will explain to you. When we think about Christianity as a whole, we need to decide whether we trust these witnesses to be telling the truth. And I think we might be able to give reasons as to why we trust them. Not conclusive reasons that are the kinds of things that every thinking human being needs to accept, but reasons that are not unreasonable. Things that are not compelling, but nevertheless they're good reasons. I can sit and talk with a Buddhist as to why I think Buddhism is mistaken. Not in a way that will force him to give up his Buddhism, but in a way that makes it clear why I think the Christian truths are correct, and Buddhism is false. Now, I can't give you, in 2 minutes, it would take me 5 or 6 hours, I think, to explain the kinds of reasons that are behind my acceptance that this bunch of witnesses are basically reliable.
But isn't that a scientific argument? You're saying that there are witnesses and you've got a rational case for believing that those witnesses are actually talking about something?
Not the kind of case that will compel every clear-minded person.
Therefore, the case has got gaps in it.
Not gaps. It's just not philosophically compelling. I mean, there are reasons that we can give. So why do I believe that these are my parents? Well, because they told me. And that's a perfectly reasonable reason
Back
to
to
believe.
that word believe again, using it in a religious sense.
No,
Science doesn't do that.
I'm not. I'm using it in a purely philosophical sense. Philosophers talk about this word all the time.
John can go along and do
Because
all the time.
John can go along and do
on that critical the point. Because it's, I think the question that's emerged that Peter has said he needs 6 hours to answer is a set of questions to do with Christian dogma in the area of the resurrection. The question that I think that's emerged that you haven't quite given us as careful an answer to is whether there are things which you accept as true. Be very careful not to use the B word. For which the application of the scientific method to which the application of the scientific method does not apply. And just a second. We've had the same example offered several times from Peter, and I think it's a good one. I'll give you a simpler, more contemporary one. Is it the case that the strike against British Airways was called off yesterday?
I don't know.
You don't know. Is there anyone else in the room who doesn't know?
Can I just come back on your point? The thing about this word truth, and I mentioned it briefly with a capital T, is that science shies away from that. Philosophically, science shies away from that. Science is about generating models of reality with explanatory power. Those models are always limited, there's always a gap, there's always something...
So what word do you use to describe your commitment to the current model? I'm happy to take your word. We've been told belief is not the word we can use. You've just told me truth is not the word we can use. What word do you use?
Correct.
It's correct. Okay.
No,
so is it...
I used the word correct to say that what you just said was a correct statement of the problem. It wasn't me offering that word.
So what is the word that you use?
The word that I use is that if I look at, say, the theory of evolution, I find it convincing. I find it very convincing. I look at all the evidence, it's very, very convincing. That does not mean to say that it's true in all sorts of sense of the word. It is convincing. It's by far the best explanation for life on this planet that I have ever heard. By far. Science is the best tool we have for determining the best models of reality. That's all it does. It doesn't deliver truth on a plate saying, believe this and you can never be wrong.
It's interesting. I'm willing to say that it's true. I don't think it's certainly true, but I'm pretty sure it's true. Okay.
I was born Muslim, and the logic you brought at the beginning.
I think the point Peter's making is Richard Dawkins has absolutely no competence whatsoever to talk about philosophy because he hasn't studied it and he doesn't understand the very basic arguments. I've got a question to you. Do you believe that human beings have a mind? Do you believe that you have a mind? And as a supplementary question, how would you prove that your mind exists? How do you prove something that's immaterial exists? Purely with reference to science.
I have a model of what human beings are and human being. Darwin's theory of evolution and all the subsequent enlightenment we put on that is very much part of that. I know where I came from. And this book I've been talking about, The Symbolic Species, explains very well a leading hypothesis as to why we're different from all the other animals, why we've got this symbolic, why we've got languages. It explains how that came about, and the evolutionary mechanisms that brought that about are very, very interesting. So that's where I stand. I look at these explanations, these models of reality, and I find them very, very convincing.
Yeah, but you still haven't established that whether you are certain that your mind exists, something that's not material, it's not part of the universe.
If you want me to answer, does the mind exist, you have to say what you mean by mind. My head's full of information. Is information part of my mind? It was St. Augustine, wasn't it, who thought that the memory was a faculty of the soul. Well, we know it's not. My computer's got a memory. My memory, the vast
I think the point that Peter would probably just one the point that would make is that science can't answer that question. That's precisely the whole point of this debate.
Science knows a lot about information.
But it can never answer the question. That's the whole point.